The day just keeps getting better. Auburn secured a spot in the SEC champions. Now they have it outright as Bama falls in pretty crazy fashion to the Tennessee Vols. Daryl Dapprich joining me. Of course, I'm your host, Zach Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We thought we'd just hop back live here because Auburn has now won the SEC championship outright. Daryl, the day just keeps getting better.
It absolutely does. You know, you're on a high after you get that big win to share. I'm greedy, though. I just am that way. You know, you want that outright title. We talked about it, especially this team. We talked about it on our live that, hey, if Alabama gets beat by Tennessee, Auburn goes to bed tonight as outright champions. And that matters. I mean, you want to be the sole champion. It matters because you get the number one seed in the SEC tournament, which is advantageous. It matters because you dang sure never want to share anything, not even a sandwich, with the University of Alabama. You want it outright yourself. And so I like it. I like the fact that this might change strategically what Auburn does.
It's interesting. Yeah.
The rest of the week. But in the here and now, it's great. It does make the day get so much better after a big win. You're still on a high because of the win. You're still on a high because of the win. And then you're like, how can this get any better? And look, this isn't about because of who got beat or the rivalry. I get it. I mean, but it's just about whoever was in the way to keep Auburn from winning this title outright. That game would have had a vested interest in that team losing. Whoever the team is just makes it an incredible day.
No question. No question about it. And just kind of the way, I mean, it was, I know Tennessee tied it up a few times down the stretch there, but it kind of, to me, felt like Alabama had it in control. But just the way that game ended, I mean, stuff you never see elite teams do, like the 5-second call when you've got a chance to win it with like 3 seconds left or whatever, and then I just don't know how you don't throw it deep in that situation. I mean, it's just crazy to think about. And then the wasn't a half court shot, but it was dang close to it with 1 second left to go in. I mean, just craziness. And Auburn has, like, there's still 2 games left is what's so crazy about all of this.
That's what's beautiful about it is how great is it of a fan of any sport when you clinch something early? And of course you want to win both those games. When I watched the Texas A&M game Tuesday night and when I watched the Alabama game Saturday, of course I want to win both of those games. Inside of me, I can't be any other way. But it is nice to go into those going, you're kind of playing with house money. Yeah. You know, you're the outright champions. And yeah, the way that game ended, let's reset. First of all, Alabama has the ball in the front court of Tennessee with a chance to win, close to the basket. It gets tied up. Because it gets tied up, the possession arrow was going to Alabama at that time, which they were lucky. It goes to half court. To not be able to get the ball in, because you're thinking 3.8 seconds, if Alabama gets the ball in, they got a shot, right? I mean, that's going through everybody's mind.
Yeah, I mean, you have like 4 or 5 plays designed for that situation when there's 2 or 3 seconds left in the shot clock. That's not a unique situation in a ball game.
Especially when you got a guy like Sears who can hit it from 25, 26 feet. So you can't get the ball in on a 5 seconds, which, oh, by the way, when you've got an elite defensive basketball team like Tennessee is, those kind of things tend to happen. Then you're thinking, all right, go into overtime. And with all the momentum, Tennessee has all the momentum going into overtime. And then that happens. It's just crazy. It's crazy. And it just puts an exclamation point on what kind of season Auburn's having.
Yeah.
For that to go down the way it did. But look, I was going to say this, and I don't want this to – that's great that Auburn was able to wrap it up with 2 games to go. But whatever Auburn accomplished this year as being the outright champion, they didn't need help from anybody. They did it themselves. They just got a chance to do it earlier. Auburn would have taken care of business, would have handled it because that's the kind of basketball team they are.
No question. And they needed, going into today's game, they needed to win 2. Like the magic number was 2. Even if Alabama won out, they needed 2. And so They could have done that against Kentucky, which obviously they did today. They ran them out of their own gym. They could have done it Tuesday night. That would have locked it up. And I mean, the odds going into this weekend of Auburn and Alabama's battle in the regular season finale, like the odds of it meaning something were pretty low just by the sheer numbers of it and who Alabama had to play and who Auburn had to play. Like it was a pretty low scenario. It's wild that these are two big games that Auburn's about to play, at least on paper. I mean, when we talked about this, when the schedule dropped, the last like few games, it was like, this is a brutal way to end the season. And now you did so much this entire season in the toughest conference in the history of college basketball. You were so dominant, Daryl, that the last two games don't even matter.
No, because I even think, I've said that Auburn has to win one of the last two to be the overall number one seed.
Yeah.
That's just an opinion. I don't know if that's fact. I don't know if they could lose both. I saw something where a bracketologist tweeted out Auburn could forfeit its last three games and they're still the number one overall seed. I don't buy that, but the bottom line is these games looked so big because Texas A&M, before they got into their little funk,
right?
Alabama, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a gauntlet. How nice would it be to have business taken care of before you have to play these two? And if you throw Kentucky into the mix, these three. And so for Auburn doing that, look, I want people to understand the historical significance of this. It is very difficult to win the regular season SEC title. It's harder to do that than it is to win the tournament, which Auburn did last year, because all you got to do is get hot for 3 or 4 days. You win it. To sustain that level of excellence in a conference is hard. But, add to the fact that this is an historically good year for the conference, and it makes it that much more. I mean, this isn't Auburn winning the SEC when it was only a 2 or 3 horse race and they sucked 6 or 7 years ago.
It's the best it's ever been.
This is the best it's ever been. And not only the best the SEC's ever been, the best a conference almost has ever been in college basketball, the metrics say. Mm-hmm. Right? Remember when we went into the conference season and everyone was going, oh my God, what has the SEC done in non-conference? This is historic. Yeah. The way the SEC has the winning percentage and all these teams. Okay, that's the same conference that you had to now play in and won.
Right.
Now I know the conference is only 500 against each other, right? That's the record.
It's important to note.
It's important to note.
I'm sure somebody will bring it up.
Carl Ravitch, and I was 5 feet from him. But anyway, so I just think that this is I don't want to over-dramatize this or overemphasize this.
Yeah.
Auburn won the regular season in the most difficult SEC and the most complete conference top-to-bottom year they've ever had. And it'll boat now. If Arkansas screwing up and losing to South Carolina today maybe hurts them in getting a spot, but it'll bode well when you look and see the tournament. If Auburn gets 12, if SEC gets 12 teams in, it just adds to the validity of it.
Yeah. Brad puts they also had 2 timeouts talking about Alabama. I assume they didn't, and that's why he didn't call a timeout. That makes it even crazier if that's true.
Here's why I don't think Oates called the timeout. You don't want Tennessee to be able to go to the sidelines and get in one of their elite defensive sets. And so I think he probably thought, look, we're going to run what we normally run inbounds, make them not have a chance to strategize. And it came back to haunt it because he couldn't get the ball in.
You hate to see it.
Because there's no way.
Hate to see it.
Rick Barnes, I guarantee you, with the kind of coach he is, has run that scenario through practice 100 times. Hey, they've got the ball out of bounds to win the game. What do we do?
But how has Alabama not done that a million times?
Well, they probably have. That's why I think Oates didn't call a timeout. They probably just ran a set play that they run,
I guess so,
to win the game. But Tennessee's trumped theirs with the way they,
So let's discuss like what this means for Auburn for the rest of the season. Meanwhile, normally we ask for player of the game. Let's don't do that. If you could list all of the teams that will have a share of the SEC title this season, more in just a moment, right here on Locked on Auburn. Daryl, today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. We've talked about how FanDuel has loved Auburn basketball throughout the entire season, and they have been the odds-on favorite really since the start, or I guess after Maui, I think is when Auburn probably passed Alabama for a betting odds favorite. But hey, right now, FanDuel, you can bet $5, and if your first $5 bet wins, you can get $150 in bonus bets. Other basketball lines right now, you can bet for Auburn to win the national championship. They're at plus 330, which I believe is the odds-on favorite. Yes, it is ahead of Duke, so take that for what it's worth. Head over to FanDuel. FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook, and once again, right now, FanDuel can new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Makes every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first or second listen every single day. A lot of people pointing out that Auburn is like, that's the list. That's the list of teams.
Well, I just tried to place a bet on FanDuel for Auburn to win the SEC regular season title outright, and I couldn't do that. I wonder why that is. It's off the board.
Oh, I wonder why.
Yeah, it's off the board.
Why? Oh, let's just say it again. The Auburn Tigers are the SEC champions. Feels good, baby.
Does feel good.
Good. All right, so what does this mean moving forward? You brought up kind of an interesting point, and when we were discussing this, it was like a hypothetical. Now I guess it's real. After in our Kentucky recap about how does Auburn handle. You did it specifically like talking about Texas A&M, but I guess we'll broaden it just to Texas A&M and Alabama. Do you rest guys more? Do you play Janai Broome and Chaney and Denver and Chad, guys who have kind of been banged up down the stretch? Do you play them less now? I think there's certainly an argument for it. My gut, Daryl, is that Bruce won't do that, but I think it makes sense for him to.
Yeah. First of all, you just do it in a one-game scenario. You don't rest anybody and play anybody less next Saturday. You don't. You want the sweep. You want to bury that. You're playing Alabama at home. You don't want the split. So that one, I think you throw out the window.
Okay.
Bruce Pearl has forgotten more about basketball than I'll ever know. But if I am him, I sit Denver and Janai Tuesday night. Because
you sit them, not load management. You just flat out sit them.
I sit them. I let Ja'Kai Howard get more minutes. I let Hudson get more minutes. I let Ja'Kai Howard get 15 minutes. I increase his confidence and his whole demeanor in case you need him in the tournament by playing him 15 minutes. I let Hudson play. I let Moore play. And I go ahead because here's the deal. You right now are the season that Auburn and the goals that they want is all about winning a national championship. It is. We can proclaim it. It's not being arrogant. This team is historically good. And if you're an historically good basketball team, you want to get into the Final Four and have a chance to win a national championship. If load management helps you achieve that, well, I say load management. It's really not because Broome and Denver are banged up. So it's not just resting guys, right? They're hurt. So they're not 100% healthy. If you can heal them up.
Let me ask you this though. If you do that, if you in this scenario, you either sit or drastically reduce Janai's minutes.
Mm-hmm.
How much do we care about the player of the year stuff? Because that would be an argument against him and for Cooper Flagg, right?
He comes back Saturday and goes off against Alabama, and it's a moot point.
Okay.
And that's what I think I think that's what would happen. His last game in Neville Arena against Alabama,
that'll be his senior day, I guess. Yeah.
And he'll be rested. And I'm telling you, that'll be the last thing the voters see and look at on their mind would be him going off in a rivalry game at home. So yeah. I get it. I get people wanting to go 17-1. I get the whole concept of wanting to win every game. Look, I am as competitive as anybody. I'm just saying I want to look a little big picture. And there are some luxuries with clinching early, and I would not do it for 2 games in a row. And I dang sure I would just do it like it's a midweek break. Like you get that midweek bye, and then you come Saturday. because then you're not rusty when you get into the NCAA tournament, Zach, because you've played the Alabama game, and then, of course, you'll play in the SEC tournament with, oh, by the way, a double bye,
right,
and really a lot of rest. So that gives you even more of a chance to kind of spread that out to get those injuries healed up.
Yeah, because they won't play until Friday, the way it currently is. So if in this scenario, if they either play fewer minutes or they sit for Tuesday, you're playing a game Saturday with everybody, and then you're not playing again until Friday. So I mean, that's not a lot of action in that 2-week span of time. Is that enough? Like, that probably makes a big difference. But
when you're at
once
this
again,
point
like,
of the year,
I think it makes sense, but I'm just not sold that. I just don't think that's who Bruce is. I don't think Bruce is a person like a coach who sits guys. I think it makes sense, Daryl. I think it totally makes sense. My bet is it doesn't happen.
And I don't think it'll happen either. And I think the reason why it won't happen is because this team is so stinking competitive. And they are like I said before, Broom came back earlier. He could have sat against Purdue in a meaningless non-conference game to be ready for the conference opener. But what did he do? He played and dropped 20 on their head. So
Purdue is meaningless. And Auburn also has a meaningless game against Texas A&M and against Alabama because they've already won the SEC. I just think that's really important to state.
Exactly. But I just don't think that they're built that way. I think they'll say, no, we're playing. Now, will they limit their minutes? Maybe. I hope so. I mean, I hope that's at the very least, like against Texas A&M, you see Janai get 22 minutes instead of 30.
I could see that more than just sitting. And I also think just having Ja'Kai there makes this more interesting too.
I would just love to find a way to get him 15 minutes, 17 minutes.
Yeah, let's give him 12 minutes each game. Let's just see what happens.
And get his confidence going, and then you have that weapon going into the postseason too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like I said, Bruce will do the right thing, and those players are too competitive to ever want to even agree with that.
I mean, the beauty of this is I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think they both make sense.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure he'll be asked about that in media this week. So we'll see. We'll see. My gut is he's like, no, we're not taking any nights off. That's my gut of what he'll say. Looking at the minutes when we do the post game Tuesday night, I think will be the biggest takeaway, one way or the other, right?
Yeah, because I think even if you don't have injuries, this season has been a grind with the non-conference schedule they've played, and then how tough this conference has been.
Yeah.
It's a grind. There are teams that are hitting a wall. Auburn's played a really, really high level of competitive basketball against a lot of elite teams. Look at the quad 1 wins, and that tells you everything you need to know. That takes a toll, I think, eventually. So, we'll see.
Right. Incredible day, and always a pleasure to spend it with you, my guy, and all of the folks that have tuned in. A lot of you guys probably tuned in also after the Kentucky game. So thank you guys for spending a ton of your Saturday celebrating with us. It's been a ton of fun. Daryl, how can people check out everything that you've got going on?
Follow me on X, DAP6410. You can get me on Instagram, Daryl Dapp. Wednesdays, Fridays with you on Locked on Auburn. And then this was fun today. We did 2 live shows. So, and we'll do our normal, by the way, a little preview. We'll do our little NCAA tournament show that we do when Auburn, where they get seated and where they play and who they play and all that. We always go live after that too, when the announcement's made.
That'll be next Sunday, right?
Correct. No, it's a week from Sunday.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. 2 Sundays.
Yeah. 2 Sundays.
15 days from now. Yeah. That's right.
Yep.
That's right. Yes, please like the video. Please subscribe if you're tuning in on audio. Please subscribe and leave a review. It helps the show out a ton. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked on Auburn, SEC Champs.